Hello and welcome to Lifeline. I'm your host, Apostle Brian Pruitt. I want to talk to you about you being someone's replacement. Oh my gosh. I know you're like, what? But as I was just reading the scriptures and thinking about the life of David, David was someone's replacement. He didn't ask for it, he wasn't looking for it, but he was chosen for the job. The Bible talks about King Saul and how I believe it's in the book of Samuel, and how Saul had an issue where he just simply would not obey God. And God got to the point to where he said, he's not listening to me. He's not doing anything I'm telling him to do. I have already chosen someone else to take his place. So he sends the prophet Samuel, who was not only the prophet at that time, but also the judge of Israel. He says, I want you to go to Jesse's house because there is a young man, my choice there. So he goes, and Jesse brings out his sons, and at Samuel's request, and Samuel's going through, and Samuel said, okay, yeah, this is it. And the Lord says, no, he's not it. You're looking at things, through your own eyes. That's not the way I judge. I judge by the heart. And so Samuel told Jesse, he said, well, hey, Jesse, do you have any more sons? And Jesse told him, well, it's just David. Just David. Go get him, Samuel said. And as soon as David came, this young man, Bible says that he was a young, ruddy man. But God said he is the one. David did not look the part. He did not look like he should be the choice or God's choice, but he was. And so Samuel anointed him as king before he took his place as king. Samuel anointed him as king. And so after Samuel anointed him as king, David went right back to what he was doing, which was tending the sheep. And that's all David was doing, was just tending the sheep. And for many of you, you're just like David. You're just going about your day. You're just, doing you. You're taking care of things and handling your business, not realizing that you have been called to be someone's replacement. You didn't ask for it. You weren't looking for it. You wasn't even requesting it. But God chose you. I remember a song I used to hear when I was little, growing up in a church of Christ Holiness. They used to sing this song, "'Tis Christ has chosen me." What do you do when God lets you know that you have been chosen? That could be really uncomfortable, to know that you have been called to take the place of someone else. So here David is anointed. He's anointed as king. And then fast forward now, Saul, who just could not handle the fact that God had rejected him. Samuel told him, look, this is over. God's not only stripped your authority, but he's taking the kingdom away from you. And the Bible says that the Lord allowed a distressing spirit to come upon Saul because, Saul, who was at first driving out witches and psychics and at that time, was now welcoming them so he could try to get an answer because he could not hear the voice of God. So he was trying to get an answer from, Samuel, which by this time Samuel had died. And so the very thing Saul had cast out and got rid of, he was telling them, hey, come on back, because I need your help because I can't hear from God. And so he was going through all these means just to try to get back what he had, but God had rejected him. God had rejected him. And so the Lord allowed a distressing spirit to come upon Saul. And so the only way that that spirit would lift off of him was David. David played the harp. And so Saul ordered for David to play the harp every time that his spirit was distressed. Every time that distressing spirit came on him, he would have David to play his harp. David, who was just worshiping the Lord, would use his instrument to worship the Lord. And all he was doing was worshiping. And through that worship, that spirit lifted off of Saul. But every time David stopped, that spirit would come back. And so here, David, knowing now that he is the one to replace Saul, did not, lord over his head. He did not, bring it to his attention. But he just did what David, was doing. David just did, they was just being himself. They was just being himself. But the time came for David to step into a position. Before this time, David had killed Goliath, and that was a big thing back then, because Goliath was known as the Philistines' champion. Nobody could stop him until David came. And it's interesting when that happened, because David was just following the instruction of his father, Jesse. I want you to go take some food to your brothers. They were in the midst of a battle. At that time, Goliath had challenged the army of Israel. And so David's 3 brothers were a part of the army fighting against the Philistines. And so Jesse told David, hey, David, I want you to go take some food and to your brothers and see how they're doing. So David did. He went off, with another shepherd, and went on. And as he came up, he saw and heard something that was distressing, something that was like out of line. Like, who is this cat talking all this trash, defying the army of the Lord? And David was like, you know what? I'm going to take this dude down. Now, Saul didn't believe that David could do it. He thought David was too young. But he realized, after listening to David share a story about how God would prepare, how God prepared him, and how God, how he went through and protected the sheep, and how he was killing lions and all these things that were trying to attack the sheep. David was confident that the same God that protected him then and helped him to take care of the sheep would help him to take down this giant. So you go on from there, and David's popularity began to grow. And man, this made Saul mad, because he saw the people now saying, hey, Saul killed his thousands, but David killed 10,000. But the whole time it was God. Why am I sharing this with you tonight? Because there are some things that you're just doing, and you're doing it well. You're doing it well. And now the attention is coming on you. Once again, you didn't ask for it. You're just trying to be you. But yet, the very one that you are helping, or in some cases serving, depending on what capacity, is now jealous of you, angry, and trying to take you out. That's what Saul did. Saul was so bitter. He was so jealous because everybody was praising David now. Everybody was like, you know, yo, this dude is it. This dude is slamming. I know Saul did this, but man, David is handling business. And Saul couldn't handle that. He could not handle it. So now the very one that was helping him to get over the distressing spirit, he was trying to kill. But it came a day that Saul, in the midst of a battle, actually took his own life, fell on his sword. And when Saul died, it was time for David to walk into the fulfillment of what happened on that day when the prophet Samuel laid hands on him and said, "You are the one." So I need you, those who are listening to this, I need you to get comfortable with this. I need you to understand that although it's uncomfortable knowing that you are someone's replacement, you must understand that it's not because you did anything. It's not because, you were trying to get over. And I'm just telling you this because even after knowing this, even after knowing that you are called to be someone's replacement, the enemy will come and would want you to think that, hey, you trying to take somebody's place. You trying to take something, something for what, somebody have. And he's doing that to get you to get out of position, to go back on what was said over your life. But I need you to understand what they did and what they didn't do is none of your concern. That's between them and God. You just have to accept the call for your life. And it's really important that you understand. It's really important that you understand that you being someone's replacement, you have to be okay with some people not liking it. Even people that you have worked with, people that you have labored with, and this thing is not just with inside the church. Excuse me. Not just inside the church, but even outside the church, on your jobs. God is preparing you to be someone's replacement. And you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with that. But you also need to know that not everybody's going to like it. Even the ones that are close to you may not like it. And you may go through all kind of, accusations and all that kind of stuff. But just remember, look, this is God's call. This is God's call. You didn't call yourself. God looked at you. He's seen what others weren't seeing. Nobody knew David's faithfulness in taking care of the sheep. And even his brothers even minimized, what David did. In fact, when David went to go take the food to the brothers and check on him, they yelled at him saying, "What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be taking care of your little sheep?" And you have some people that will look at you like, "Oh, what you doing is insignificant. It's really not important." And based upon that, there are those who would from as far as that reason alone, uh, that's the reason why they feel like you don't deserve it. It's a combination of jealousy and envy. One says, uh, I want what you have, and I don't think you deserve it. I want what you have with a passion, and I don't think you deserve it. But you have to be okay with that. You have to know you have to know that this is something that uh, it didn't have anything to do with you. You just been elevated to do this. But I don't want you to focus on other people's negativity. I want you to focus on you being ready to step in and be who God called you to be. Now here's what's so beautiful about this. That even though God called you to be someone's replacement, it doesn't mean that you have to change what you're doing. In other words, God didn't call you. He didn't call you for you to, be elevated and start acting different or start doing something different. No. He said, I want you to be who you are. I want you to continue to do what I tell you to do. Be the king that I know that you are. Be the king that I know that you are. And just walk in this new place. That's it. Don't try to be like somebody else. And one of the things that I think that we make the mistake in doing is that even when God elevates us and puts us in new places of authority, influence, that we feel like that we got to act different now. No, He chose you because you were just being you. So don't lose that. So I want you to just settle that. Settle that. I want you to just understand. Understand that you have been called to be God's replacement. You say, now what? Not God's replacement, but someone's replacement, someone else's replacement. Someone else's replacement. It's God's choice. And even there, another scenario, that it may not be a situation where it is that the person that that you're replacing, that they're upset. They already knew. They already know. God told them, and they're okay with that. But there's others that are not okay. Once again, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter, what anybody else says. It only matters what God has said. So you may say, well, man, what does this have to do with this podcast lifeline? Because I want you to know that you always have a lifeline in Him. You are not out there alone. Picture someone that's out in the ocean, and there's like no help in sight. But then all of a sudden, here comes another ship, another boat to help them in the midst of being in a dark place. They're their lifeline. You remember the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I believe that's what it was. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I believe that's what it was. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I may have the game show mixed up, but no, I think it was another game show. It's not Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It was something else. Can't think of it right now. But the premise of the show was you had to answer these questions, and the more you answer, the more money you get, and then If it came to a place, it came to a point to where you could not answer a question, there was always an option to call a lifeline, which means that I can make a call. I can make a call and get help at any time. So even what we are talking about and what we will talk about in future episodes is all centered around you knowing, you understanding that you always have a lifeline. And my prayer is that no matter what you're going through, that each episode that you hear will be a lifeline to you, that you may be able to tap into and say, you know what? That was for me. You know what? That right there, I needed that. I felt like I was drowning. But that right there saved my life. That right there helped me. I felt like things were just out of whack. But when I heard that, that helped me to get back on track. Thank you for listening, and join me next time for another episode of Lifeline.